Welcome back, everybody. On the last episode, we implemented monitoring server 1, giving us a way to detect when the web service application 1 goes down. But detecting a problem is only the first step. Once an alert comes in, we actually need a way to investigate those events. And that's where Splunk comes in. So in today's episode, we're going to install Splunk Enterprise on Workstation 1 and Universal Forwarder on Application 1, giving us a way to ingest our logs directly into Splunk. By the end of this episode, we'll be able to generate activity against our web server and investigate those events directly in Splunk. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, guys, so I'm in VirtualBox. So as we added more systems and applications to this environment, the lab has naturally started to use more memory. So when we install Splunk today, it's going to be the heaviest application that we've added so far. So I'm gonna try to rebalance the memory allocated to our virtual machines before we continue. So I'm just gonna start off with workstation one. It's already selected. So I'm gonna go to settings. Now we go to system. And right now it's at 4096. I'm gonna change this to 3072. And so I'm gonna hit OK. And then I'll go to application one. And I'm gonna go to settings, system. It's at 2048. I'm gonna change it to 1024. Okay. I'm gonna do the same for this one. And I'll explain why in just a second. So 1024. Okay. So the reason I gave workstation one the largest allocation is because now we'll be running Windows on it along with Splunk Enterprise. An application one server and monitoring one server, they're more of a lightweight Ubuntu servers. So the 1 GB that we gave it is going to be enough for what we're doing. And so your available resources may be different from mine. So if your computer has, a lot more memory available, then you can, leave it as is or allocate more. The goal of doing that was just simply to make sure that your host computer can still have enough memory available while these machines are running all at the same time. So for the Splunk installation, I'm gonna leave the Ubuntu servers off temporarily. There's no reason to use the resources running while we're installing Splunk. So we're just gonna start with workstation one. We're gonna power that up, and then we'll get started with the Splunk installation. Okay, so now we're on workstation one. So because we're going to be investigating events based on timestamps, I think it's important that the workstation we're using for Splunk has the correct time zone. And so one way we're going to be able to check that is we're going to go to command prompt and we're going to run it as an administrator. So I'm just going to right click this and do run as administrator. I'm going to click yes here. Okay. And so one way to check, we're going to run this command right here. Okay, so you see mine says Central Standard Time. So I'm running this lab from Central Time. So this is the way I want it configured for this workstation. If yours is correct, then you don't have to change it. If you do need to change it, the command you're going to run is you do /s, and then you'll do whatever your preferred time zone is. So mine was so that's the type of command you'd run for whatever time zone you're in. And then just to check it, you run this and it should tell you. And one more thing I want to do, I want to make sure that Windows Time Service is running. So the next command I'm going to run is net start time. So we're going to give that a second. Okay, so it says start successfully. So next command we're going to run is here. Okay. And then I'm gonna run this just to make sure that it's running. Okay, so this is what it is gonna look like. So we got the source time right here, which is correct. You can see this time matches the time down here in the corner. So everything looks right. And now that we got that done, so we got our resources adjusted, workstation 1 is running, our system time is ready. So now we're going to go ahead and download Splunk Enterprise and turn workstation 1 into the logging and investigation workstation for our lab. Okay, so now that workstation 1's time is synchronized, let's go ahead and download Splunk. So I'm just going to open up Microsoft Edge. So now we're going to go to the Splunk download enterprise page. So Splunk. All right, so that's the URL we're gonna go to. All right, so if you guys get to this page, you're gonna go ahead and fill this information out if you don't have an account already. I already have one, so I'm just gonna log in and we're gonna skip to the download part. But if you guys don't have an account, just go ahead and fill one out right here. Okay, so I'm on the choose your download page. I'm gonna scroll down. I'm gonna click right here and hit download now. And it should start downloading. If it doesn't, then you can just click this here and it should go ahead and start for you. All right, there it goes. So start downloading. Once it finishes, we'll come back and we'll go through the installation process. Okay, so we're going to check this box here. We're going to click next. Then Splunk is going to ask you to create an administrator account. So this is going to be the account that we use to access the Splunk web interface. So for mine, I'm just going to do admin, and then I'm just going to put a password. And once you do that, you'll click next and then install. And so this may take a minute. Once we come back, we'll go ahead and sign into the account that we just created for Splunk. Oh, and during the installation process, when you guys get this notification, make sure to click yes. Okay, so Splunk has finished installing, so I'm just going to click finish here. And now the Splunk webpage is now opening. So here in a second, we're going to see the Splunk Enterprise home screen, and we're going to log into that administrator account that we created. Okay, so now we're going to log in with that account that we created. Okay, so we're just going to exit out of this. And the first thing I want to do is click up here where it says administrator and go to preferences. And we just want to make sure that this time zone reflects the time zone that you're in. So for me, I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna choose this one and hit apply. So once you guys do that, the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna configure workstation 1 to receive log data from other systems in our environment. Okay, so before we bring application 1 online, let's go ahead and prepare Splunk to receive data from the Universal Forwarder that we'll install later. So how we're gonna do that, we're gonna go to settings. We're gonna scroll down to forwarding and receiving. So here, you're gonna click that. Okay, so we're gonna scroll down to receive data, and we're gonna click on configure receiving. We're gonna click on new receiving port. And here we're going to type in 9997. And we're going to scroll over and click save. So port 9997 is commonly used by Splunk forwarders to send data to a Splunk receiver. And port 8000 gives us access to the Splunk web interface. So port 9997 will be used to receive our forwarding log data. Okay, there it is. So there's actually one more thing that we need to configure. That's going to be our Windows firewall. So the Windows firewall may block incoming connections to port 9997. So we'll create an inbound rule allowing traffic. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to go here to the search, and we're going to type in Windows Defender Firewall with advanced security. So you see it right here. So we're just going to click on that. Okay, so we're going to first go to inbound rules, and then we're going to click here on new rule. All right, so we're going to choose port, and we're going to click next. We're going to leave this at TCP, and here we're going to type 9997. We're going to click next. We're going to click, I'll leave it here at allow the connection. We'll keep all these checked. And then for the name, I'm going to put Splunk Forwarder TCP 9997. Click finish. And there's our rule right here. So now that we got the workstation ready to accept incoming traffic over a TCP port 9997, now we can bring the rest of our environment online. So we're going to go back to the virtual box, and we're going to turn on our other servers, application 1 and monitoring server 1. Okay, before we go to application 1, first we need a way for application 1 server to actually send its logs to workstation 1. So for that, we'll install the Splunk Universal Forwarder. And basically, the Universal Forwarder is a lightweight agent that's designed to collect data from a system and then just send it to Splunk. So the way we're going to do that, we're going to go back to the Splunk download page, but for the Universal Forwarder. Here. Okay, so you guys should have an account already, so we're just going to log in. Okay, so now we're on the download page. We're going to go to Linux. We're going to scroll down here to the 64-bit, and we're going to click here on the download now. And so when you get to this page, you're actually going to want to click here on the download via command line. So when you click that, it's going to give you this URL right here. Let's just wait for this. So this is what you need to copy and copy it down somewhere, because we're going to use it later in application 1. So when you guys get this, just copy it down, and then I'll show you guys what to do on the next step. Okay, so now I am in application 1. So we're going to run that wget command. So the one that I told you guys to save or write down to the side, we're going to go ahead and run that. So I'm going to type that out. All right, so I have it all typed out. We're just going to wait for it to download. All right, so now we're just going to verify that it downloaded. All right, there it is. So now we're just going to install the package. All right, and you're going to type in your password. All right. So now the Universal Forwarder is now installed. So we're going to go ahead and start it and accept the Splunk license. So next we're going to do sudo. All right, so now we're going to enter in an administrator username. So I'm going to do admin. Then password. Okay. So now we need to tell it where to send this data. So our Splunk Enterprise server on workstation 1 is 192.168.56.20. And we have it configured to receive the forwarder data on port 9997. So next we're going to run sudo forwarder. All right, we're going to enter in our password, username that we created for Splunk, password, and there we go. So application 1 is now connected to our Splunk receiver. So the forwarder knows where to send data, but now we need to tell it what data we want. And so that's what we're going to configure next. So now we're going to tell the forwarder which logs we want to actually collect. So for this lab, we're going to start with the Apache access logs. So the first thing we're going to run here. Okay, so you guys see the access log and we got the error log. So Apache stores information about web requests inside the access log. So this really includes stuff like HTTP response code, source address, and information about the client making the request. So for now, we'll just send those logs into Splunk. So Next, we're gonna run this command. All right, we're gonna type in our password, Splunk username, password. All right, so we see that it's been added. So I'm also explicitly assigning the access combined source type. So all this does is tell Splunk that we're sending it Apache access logs data so that it can interpret the events correctly instead of just trying to automatically determine the format. Before we go to workstation one to generate traffic on Splunk, I just want to check the time synchronization on application one. So first, I want you guys to run date and make sure that the date is correct. And then what we're going to do, we're going to run time, date, CTL. And you guys see here how mine says the system clock is not synchronized. So we need to fix that. So first, we're going to run sudo time, date, CTL, set p false. We're going to type in our password. And then we're going to do sudo time, date, CTL, true. All right, and then we're gonna run that time date command again. And you see here, now it says the system clock is synchronized. Okay, so now that we got that done, we're gonna move over to workstation one. Go ahead and power all three of your servers up. So I have application one, workstation one, and monitoring server one all running right now. And we're gonna go ahead and move over to workstation one to Splunk. Okay, guys, so actually one more thing before we move on to workstation one. I noticed that when I was doing my time date command, that the timing was off. And so the time zone was showing on application one like 6 hours ahead. And so if yours is doing the same, I'm gonna show you exactly how I fixed mine. So the first command I ran was sudo time date CTL set dash NTP false. And then I put my password. And then the next command I wrote was sudo time date CTL set time. And then you're going to put whatever time it is wherever you're at. So for me, or first you're going to put the date. So for me, today's date is 8/14. So I'll put 8/14. And then I'm going to put the current time. So for me right now, the current time is 5:53 a.m. So that's why I'm going to put 53. Oops. Just like that. So I'm gonna hit enter. And then I'm gonna type date. And you can see now it has the correct date. So then I'm gonna type sudo time date CTL set NTP true. Okay, so now that we did that, I'm gonna run a command to try to generate a new request in workstation one. So we're gonna run a curl command. So we're gonna do curl HTTP 192.168.56.10. Okay, so now we're going to head over to workstation 1 and we're going to check the logs and see if it appeared. All right, y'all, so I'm back on workstation 1. So I'm just going to log into my account. And what we're going to do, we're going to search and reporting. And once we get here, I want you guys to type index, or index equals, and then host equals BridgeOpsOne. And then we're going to do the last 15 minutes. We're going to run that. And we should see some events. So here we go. You guys see the event right here. So this is one that we just ran. Here's another recent one. So the 200 right here, you guys see, that just represents a successful request to our portal. And it just returns an HTTP status code. You guys also see, let's see here, the uptime Kuma. So now we're bringing in pieces of our lab together. So the monitoring 1 server is generating monitoring traffic. The application 1 is recording the activity, and Universal Forwarder is collecting those logs. And Splunk Workstation 1 is giving us a place to investigate them. So right now, everything's looking, normal and doing what it's supposed to do. So next, we're going to intentionally generate a failed web request and use Splunk to find the difference between the successful and unsuccessful traffic. Okay, guys, so let's intentionally try to generate a failed request, and we're going to see if Splunk picks it up. So we're going to go to another tab, and we're going to type, it's right here, and then we're going to do /status .html. So this page does not exist, so we're going to get a 404 not found error. And so what should happen is when we go to Splunk and we're going to type in a search right here, we should see that error code pop up if it's doing it correctly. Let me change this to 15 minutes. And we're actually going to search for status HTML. So search for the last 15 minutes, and let's see what we get. Okay, here we are. You guys see at 8:31 a.m., we got the 404 error request. So this is a resource not found code. And so it looks like it's working just as expected. So this is the role Splunk is going to play as our lab becomes more advanced. Uptime Kuma gives us the visibility into whether the application is available, and then Splunk gives us a place to investigate the activity and logs coming from our systems. Okay, guys, and with that, our enterprise lab is officially ready for incident troubleshooting. So over the past several episodes, we built each part of this environment one piece at a time. Now, all those pieces are going to start working together. So monitoring 1 server gave us the monitoring. It helps us detect when our application becomes unavailable. Splunk gives us the centralized access to the logs coming from application 1, so we can investigate what's happening. And our incident repository that we're going to build on the next episode is going to give us a way to intentionally introduce problems into the environment and practice troubleshooting them. So in the next episode, we are going to actually practice with live incidents. so we can get the full experience. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna introduce BridgeOpsOne. So what we're gonna use BridgeOps for is a command center. So here I'm gonna pull it up right here. This will be used to create a ticket. So here you see the create new ticket button. We're gonna create an incident in BridgeOpsOne and document it as we're actually troubleshooting our live incidents in our virtual environment. And so that's what we're going to do in episode 7. Something in the environment is going to break, and we're going to work the incident from beginning to end. So at this point, the lab is completely built. So now it's time to see if we could actually operate it. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in episode 7.